Hello, everybody. Today we are going to talk about the building blocks of geometry. Okay, so the first word that we need to know, and remember, especially in geometry, but in virtually every math, when you define a word, it has to be exactly defined. Okay, so a point is an exact location. Okay, it has no length, it has no width, it has no height. It has no size. It's just a single point. Okay? And we always label that with a capital letter. So in this case, right here, we have point P. Okay. Now we have something called a line. A line is an object that has length. Okay? It's got length. It has no width. It has no height. Okay? We label a line with 2 points usually. Okay, so when we see this right here, it says QR. It's got a little line over the top. That's red, line QR. So when you see that, you read it as line QR. Now, I can pick any 2 points that I want on the line. So if I had another point here, I had S right here, I could call this line QS if I wanted, or I could call it line SQ if I wanted, or I could call it line SR or RS. Okay, doesn't matter. Just pick 2 points on the line and you're good to go. Okay, our next term is going to be a plane. A plane, now this looks like a parallelogram. It's not a parallelogram. It's a flat surface, and we're kind of looking at it from kind of above. Okay, it has length. Okay, so it's got length here. It's got width here. Okay, but it has no height. It's a totally flat surface. It's like the surface of your desk. Okay, and usually label that with a capital letter in the corner. Okay, then we have something called a space. A space has length. Okay, so it's got length this way. It's got width this way. It's got height this way. Okay, so you can think of a space as an empty room. So we don't usually name them, but a space can be like a box. It can be anything, actually. It could be a pyramid. But it's something that has length, width, and height. Okay, the word colinear. 3 or more points in a straight line. Any 2 points are always colinear. Got my parenthesis right there. So we don't usually call points colinear. Colinear, it basically says right here in the word line. Okay. So colinear means on the same line. So in this case here, line S. Let's make this nice green color. This line right here, these 3 points, S, T, and U, are colinear because they're all in a straight line. Now, if I look at points A, B, and C, they are not colinear because there is no way to make a line that goes through them. Okay, I can make it go through 2 of them if I want. But, I can't make it go through all 3 of them. Because in order to do that, I would have to make something that curves. Okay? And that's not going to happen. A line is straight. It has no curve to it. Sometimes lines are called curves, but they are straight. Okay, coplanar, 4 or more points in the same plane. Any 3 points are always coplanar. Okay, so if I draw 3 points, kind of think of it this way. If I got this point right here and this point right here and say this point C right here, there is going to be one plane that goes through those 3 points. Now, if I add a 4th point, that's not necessarily true. Okay. So I could make something like this. Here's 3 points. And I draw the plane as a triangle. And then I put another point right here. And I show that it's above the plane right there. Okay, it's not in the plane. These are non-coplanar. Okay? So you need to know the words collinear, coplanar. All right, a segment. A segment is a part of a line that has 2 endpoints. It's always named by the 2 endpoints. It's not like a line where you can pick any 2 points on the line and name it. The segment must be named by the endpoints. So I've got a point B right here. I've got a point A right here. So this would be segment AB. And notice I just have put a bar above it. That means that it's a segment. It starts at A, it ends at B. Now I could call this segment BA if I wanted to. It wouldn't matter. Okay, because it's the same piece. When I read this right here, I read that as segment AB. Okay, so that's a segment. Think of a line and you cut it off at 2 ends, and what's left is the segment. Okay, array. Array is a part of a line that has only 1 endpoint. It's named using the endpoint and any other point on the ray. So here I have a ray. Notice it's got an arrow at this end, which means it goes on forever. It does not have an arrow at this end. It stops at J. So this would be, I would write this as ray JK. I could also call it ray JM. Okay? I cannot call it ray MJ because that would be a different ray that started here and went this direction. Okay, that would be a different ray than ray JM. So be very cautious of that. People mess that up all the time. You can write segments backwards. You can write lines backwards. You cannot write rays backwards. Okay, so we got a couple questions here. Is segment AB the same as segment BA? Think about that for a second. Pause and think about it. And the answer is yes. It's the same segment. Next question, is ray JK the same as ray KJ? And the answer to that is, of course, no. They go in opposite directions. You can think of a ray, it's called a ray, because it's something that starts at the sun, okay? Like a ray of sunlight starts at the sun and it goes on forever in one direction, okay? That's what a ray does. All right, a midpoint. A midpoint is a point exactly in the middle of a segment. Okay, so what we would do is maybe we would have something like segment AB. And if I wanted the midpoint, be right about there. Often we call midpoints M. Okay, and if I want to make it the midpoint, what I do is I put tick marks on this thing. So what these tick marks mean, it doesn't tell me how long this is. It just tells me that this segment right here is equal in length to that segment right there. Okay? If I put this on here, now they are not the same length. And having 2 tick marks does not mean that you're longer than if you have 1 tick mark. Okay? It just means that you're different. So if this would not be a midpoint then. But if I do this, now it is a midpoint again. Okay, so we're going to look at this right here. Name the midpoint of the segment. Okay, so think about it for just a second. The midpoint of, look at this, midpoint of GH. would be y. Okay? Because it's 15 feet from G to Y, and it's 15 feet from Y to H. So that Y is the midpoint. Now, the midpoint of LM, segment LM, would be also Y, because it's 8 feet from L to Y, and it's 8 feet from Y to M. Okay, if we look at this picture over here, okay, name any midpoint on here. Well, pause, think about it for just a second, and you, of course, would say point G is the midpoint of segment AC. Now, is J a midpoint? No, it's not. It's obviously not a midpoint. It's much closer to C than B. I don't have anything to say whether these are equal in length. Okay. Now, this is kind of the weird thing, though. If I were to say, do this, and go ahead and put a tick mark here and a tick mark here, that would mean that J is the midpoint. It means my drawing's off, but it would be a midpoint then, because what I'm saying with these tick marks is JC is the same length as JB. Okay? So you got to watch those tick marks. Sometimes people will try to trick you by drawing something that's obviously not correct and then putting marks in to make it correct. Okay? H is not the midpoint of AB unless I were to do something dastardly like this. Now you would say, yes, H is the midpoint of AB. We're not going to do that here. Oops. I got rid of my H. Okay. Moving right along. Oh, that's it. Okay, so here we go. Our first lesson, lesson 1, 1-1. You know what? I went ahead and I put this all in a assignment. It's right here. So you can ignore this page right here. We'll just get rid of this page. So delete. Oh, it's not going to let me delete it. Okay, anyway, there's a little worksheet for you. Here it is. I will make sure to make a copy for you. And good luck, and I will see you guys tomorrow.